My sister asked me to be the maid of honor at her wedding, but I didn't know that what seemed like a ceremony of love was actually a sham. When I found out the truth, what I did shocked everyone. Before we dive into this story, tell me, where are you watching from? Put your city or country in the comments and take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel because we have an incredible new story waiting for you tomorrow, made especially for you. It was a sunny morning when my sister Sophia called me. She was radiant, more excited than ever, and asked me to be the maid of honor at her wedding. I was very moved, of course. Sophia and I have always been very close, and I knew how much she had dreamed of her wedding day since we were little. The whole family was excited, especially her, who had already started planning everything down to the smallest detail. The groom, Rodrigo, was a nice guy, always kind and attentive. He seemed like the perfect match for Sophia. They had met in college and in no time started dating. When they announced their engagement, everyone was happy for them. After all, it was a love story that seemed perfect. There were no signs that anything was out of place, not even for me or our parents. Sophia was finally about to marry the man of her dreams. As her maid of honor, I was very excited. I wanted to be part of such a special moment for her. The wedding was set for the following weekend, and she had chosen every detail with such care. The decorations, the guests, the catering, everything was impeccable. I felt honored and happy to be a part of it. You know, I hope Rodrigo really understands how much this wedding means to me. Sometimes he seems a little distant, but I know that deep down he cares, Sophia said, trying to hide a look of concern. She tried to cover it up, but there was something in the way she said it that made me uncomfortable. However, in the midst of the preparations, something began to bother me. It was a small detail, something I only noticed when I was helping Sophia choose her wedding dress. During one of our conversations about the wedding, she mentioned something that left me feeling uneasy. A few days before the wedding, a friend of mine, Laura, who was also a friend of Sophia's, sent me a worrying message. She told me she had seen something strange at a dinner the night before between the couple. Laura mentioned that Rodrigo was acting strangely, and that she even saw him talking to another woman in a very intimate way. This made me even more intrigued. But the wedding was so close, and I didn't want to ruin Sophia's happiness. I was torn between loyalty to my sister and the desire to understand what was really going on. However, my intuition was telling me that something wasn't right. Something was out of place, and I needed to find out what it was. I remained silent, trying not to ask too many questions, but throughout the week, other little things started to happen. When I talked to Rodrigo, he seemed a little anxious, but not like someone who was about to get married. He seemed to be in a constant state of nervousness, and I noticed that his answers were becoming shorter and more evasive. It wasn't the behavior of a man preparing for the most important day of his life. Does Sophia know about this? I asked myself. Does she have any idea what's going on? Rodrigo was surprised, but he accepted my invitation. When we met at a quiet cafe, I asked him directly. The night before the wedding, I made a decision that would change everything. I knew I had to talk to Rodrigo. I couldn't walk down the aisle tomorrow and watch my sister marry a man who might not be who he said he was. I called him and asked to meet up. Rodrigo, I need to know the truth. Do you really love Sophia? Because something is telling me that you're not being honest with her, or with me. He hesitated for a moment, clearly uncomfortable, but then, with a heavy sigh, he opened up. Look, I never wanted anyone to know, especially Sophia, but the truth is, I'm not ready to get married. I do like her, but not in the way everyone thinks. In fact, I've been involved with someone else for months. Sophia never knew, and I didn't know how to tell her. I don't want to hurt her, but I can't hide it anymore. But what upset me the most was the reason why he was doing this. I got into this relationship with her because I knew it would be the easiest thing to do. Everyone wanted us to be together. She was so in love with me, and I didn't want to disappoint anyone, he said with a guilty look on his face. I was in shock. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was impossible for me to imagine that Rodrigo, the man who seemed so perfect, was lying to my sister like that. He was marrying her knowing that he didn't love her the way he should. I felt like the ground was opening up beneath my feet, but what to do now? The wedding was in a few hours, and my sister was about to walk down the aisle without knowing the truth. I had to make a decision. Sophia, I need you to listen to me. Rodrigo doesn't love you the way you think he does. He's been involved with another woman, and he's not ready for this marriage. I know you're going to be devastated, but you deserve to know the truth. I was at a crossroads. My loyalty to my sister was unquestionable, but I knew that by telling her the truth, I could destroy her life in an irreparable way. What do you do when someone's happiness is about to be ruined by the truth? When the lie has become so big that there's no turning back? I decided that the only thing I could do was go to the altar and tell the truth right then and there. I couldn't let Sophia marry someone who didn't truly love her. So, on the big day before the ceremony began, I went to her in the dressing room and spoke with all the sincerity I could muster. Sophia's face went pale. She was speechless for a few seconds, and then her eyes filled with tears. She looked at me trembling and finally said, I replied, I'm your sister Sophia, I love you, and I would never let you make such a big mistake. Sophia turned away from me, her hands covering her face. She was devastated, but the truth had been told. The wedding was called off, and although it was a painful moment, I felt that my sister was better off without that relationship. I can't believe it. How could I have been so blind? How did you find out? When all the guests had left and the party room was empty, Sophia and I had a long and difficult conversation. She thanked me for being honest with her, even when it was the last thing she wanted to hear. After the revelation, the party venue was silent, but the tension in the air was palpable. I looked at Sophia, who was completely shaken. It was impossible to see my sister in that state. Her face was streaked with tears, and she looked to be in shock. I hugged her, and for a moment, we stood there, speechless, trying to process everything that had happened. She looked at me with eyes still filled with pain, but there was something else there now. A relief, a sense that despite the pain, she was beginning to break free. I don't know what to do now, she said, her voice breaking. I can't believe what Rodrigo did to me. How could he deceive me like that? I held her tighter. I know it's hard, but you're better off now. The truth can be painful, but it's the only way to start over, Sophia, and I'll be here for you, always. Sophia ran her hand over her face, trying to control her tears, but the truth had finally come out. The marriage that everyone thought would be the happiest of her life was nothing but a sham built on lies, and now she had to rebuild her life. But what impacted me the most was what happened next. Sophia wasn't just sad or upset, she was determined. She surprised me. When she calmed down, she took a deep breath and said, I'm not going to let him destroy me. I'm going to move on. I can't keep living a lie. I need to focus on myself. It was as if the Sophia I knew had been reborn right there, in that moment. I knew that despite the pain, she had the strength to move forward. Over the following weeks, I saw my sister regain her confidence and independence. She started therapy, threw herself into her work, and surrounded herself with people who genuinely loved her. It wasn't easy, but the pain of betrayal, though intense, was the catalyst for her transformation. Rodrigo, on the other hand, disappeared from Sophia's life. He tried to apologize a few times, but the damage was already done. He had broken something that couldn't be fixed with words. Sophia knew that the only thing he could do now was to walk away and let her live her life, far from the shadows of a relationship based on lies. I knew he had taken the easy way out, but now it was Sophia who was taking control of her life. In a short period of time, I saw her become a stronger and more mature version of herself, and to my surprise, she even began to open her heart to new possibilities. Her recovery was gradual, but she was determined not to let Rodrigo's lies define her. One afternoon, she called me excited. I met someone. I don't know if it will work out, but it's a start. I just want to enjoy life now, without pressure, without expectations. I want to be happy for myself first. I couldn't help but smile. This was my sister. She had reinvented herself, and now she was starting to see the world in a new way. She told me about a guy named Lucas, someone she met at a work event who made her feel good, without the lies or expectations of a failed relationship. I just want to allow myself to feel something real now, she said, and I felt that the truth she had discovered about herself was more powerful than any lie Rodrigo could have told her. A few months later, Sophia and Lucas were getting to know each other better, and I saw her happiness blossom again. She wasn't completely healed from the pain of the past, but she was now learning to build a future based on what she really wanted, not what others expected of her. Meanwhile, I found myself reflecting on what I had done. I knew that by telling my sister the truth, I had helped her avoid a future of greater suffering, but I also knew that it had cost us all dearly. The truth always comes at a price, but sometimes that price is the key to true freedom. What I learned from this whole experience is that people often settle into unsustainable relationships because they are afraid of change, confrontation, and the unknown. But the truth has never been easy to swallow. It hurts, it stings, it unsettles us. But it is the only thing that can free us from a cycle of lies and guide us towards something more authentic. Rodrigo eventually moved on with his life too, but that was no longer my problem. Sophia, on the other hand, became stronger than I could have ever imagined. She found peace within herself herself, and although the fake marriage was a painful experience, it pushed her to become who she was meant to be, an independent, courageous woman in charge of her own happiness. And when I looked at her, I saw that despite the tears, true love had blossomed again, not where she expected it to, but in her own strength and resilience. That was the surprising story of the fake marriage and the courage to reveal the truth even when it's the last thing we want to do. But now, I want to know, what did you think of this story? Do you believe that often the truth, even when it's painful, is the only path to true happiness? Leave your opinion in the comments. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone you think needs to hear this powerful lesson about honesty, courage, and new beginnings. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that show how the truth can transform our lives for the better. Want more inspiration? Click on one of the videos appearing on the screen now and continue to be moved by other stories that will warm your heart and make you reflect. See you in the next video.